Hello, welcome back. So today I'm talking about factions and the different types of syndicates. The syndicate terminal is found directly to the left. After MR3 you actually unlock them. There's only two that you get before MR3, which is Conclave, which nobody plays anymore, and the Ostrons because they're like mandatory to learning the game, so they are there as well. However, the reason syndicates are very, very important is because it's actually the main access for augment mods and other such items. I have New Loka, Red Veil, and Parent Sequence, though there is a way to get 4, mainly just like micromanagement and stuff like that. I, however, am not that into it. If I need a mod from like any of these 3, I personally just buy it from somebody or trade for it. That's the easiest way in my opinion, other than micromanaging and such like that. This is a very important menu as you get pretty late into the game, because from here you can buy relic packs, specters, some of the Arcwing weapons, and then also different types of augment mods. These are extremely important because they basically change how characters can play. Like Viral Tempest, I use all of the time when I use Tempest Barrage because it inflicts viral instead of just corrosive. Spectre Siphon and stuff like that. These are pretty easy to farm because basically all you have is the daily standing. You play through a mission, you get standing for them regardless of what you're doing. It's just something you get as you're leveling weapons, or even just getting affinity, which is the experience in the game. Making it very easy just to max out at least 2, like Arbiters is allied with Hexit or Suda. So both of these, if you select Arbiters, you will get it for Suda. However, they are opposed to Parent Sequence and Red Veil, which means they will decrease their standing as you use specifically that one. Generally, it's not that big of a deal. The most they will do to you is send out a death squad that, if you're running in any kind of team, just instantly die, or if you have like a somewhat competent weapon. They're not that big of a threat. The biggest thing that can be frustrating is the fact that you won't be getting their augment mods. But other than that, it's really not that big of a deal. Standing increases as your MR increases, so obviously you have 3 and then upwards it keeps giving you more standing. That standing cap does include everything else, like Cetus, daily standing on those, Fortunas, and then etc. The daily standing cap is not just limited to specifically what you can get for this, it's for every faction. Overall, factions are pretty important, mainly because things like, I run Cora. I don't know if she's part of this. No. I run Cora. I have Accumulating Whipclaw and Pilfering Strangledome. You have everything you could pretty much look for if you're trying to round out a build, like Trinity, I talked about in the video. Abating Link is here. Champion's Blessing, Pull of Life, Vampire Leech. This is basically your one-stop shop for all of this. So honestly, if you're looking for any specific faction, genuinely your best bet would be looking at what frames you can't get off of a faction, though there are very few you'll have a problem with that for. In general, a lot of this you can get from other players, or if you have like one other buddy that's running like opposing factions to you, that's also a good point. There's also, in the terminal, there's this little thing called Syndicates, in which all of these are just free syndicate standing past the daily cap. This 3.5 does not count against my daily standing, instead it adds to it. So technically, I have like I think 2,700 or 27,000, sorry. And this would allow me to get over 30, like 5,000 standing. This is a crucial part of the game that isn't really that quite difficult, mainly because past a certain point there's not much that they give you. Once you start getting like all of the augment mods, or the ones that are actually useful, they kind of just fade into the background and are just really used for relic packs, because you can get 3 relics per relic pack really easily per day, so that kind of helps. That's pretty much what they boil down to late game. They do have specific like effects though. I can messing up in the tab that I have it open so I can explain this. For example, New Loco, because that's one of the ones I have. If I come to this, these weapons, which do count towards your MR, are kind of buffed or changed weapons that are exclusive to the Syndicate. You can get weapons from disfavored syndicates through trading, as long as they aren't modified or anything like that. But the reason these are somewhat important, to a point, not really, as these are pretty weak. Like, secondary fire mode has 40% chance to disarm enemies for the Panthera, is extremely weak. These weapons are hardly used, even at low level, but the +1 purity has a gauge on the side of your screen that you fill up with affinity, and then it'll do a damage type burst. This is across all to the factions. They each have an individual effect. For New Loca, it's corrosive, which heals you for 25% of your health and then adds 25% base health. I'll pull 2 here. So that's for New Loca. For Red Veil, it deals a viral damage burst, which is extremely good. Restores 25% of your energy and gives you 10% movement base speed. For Parent Sequence, it's a radiation burst, restores 25% of your shields, and then gives you 50% more shields. Arbiters of Hexus is a gas type burst, which is very not good, restores 25% of your health, and boosts your parkour by 25%. Suda is a magnetic type burst, super good against Corpus, pretty weak against everything else, restores 25% of your energy, which is pretty good, and then gives you 25% increased base energy. And then finally, Steel Meridian is a blast type burst, which is extremely weak, 25% health restore, and 15% more armor. These are pretty, again, a lot of these are for like weak weapons. Like this one is Dark Dagger, Embolist, Kunai, and Mire, super weak weapons. But if you have a Riven or you're trying to do something super specific with these, this is very good. The only one I'd say is kind of good is the Lanka one, but at the same point, kill a flying enemy, creates a lightning trap from their remains. It's still pretty weak, especially because it's specifically only flying enemies, and if they're CC'd, I don't think it counts sometimes. It's super weird. But yeah, factions are pretty important, obviously. This goes for the rest of these as well, like Solaris United is the Fortuna one, Necrolisks is the one from Deimos, and Chrysalith is a pretty late game one for the Zeraman. All of these are pretty important for also getting different mods. Some of them give you arcanes and stuff like that, especially the Chrysalith, because these guys have late game stuff that really round out your build and give you very unique items. So yeah, factions are pretty cool. Just boils down to, once you clear out their stock, do you really need anything else from them? And if not, then you just start scooping up a ton of relic packs just to really get the drop in on like the newer frames and stuff like that. So yeah, that's factions in a brief period.